Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto got marriage with Tayuya and have a child part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. It has been 1.5 years since the 4th Great Shinobi War. Life in Konoha was booming better than it ever was, even with a somewhat lazy and some would say nonchalant Kage, Kakashi Hatake. And for one blonde, life couldn't be any better. First, he had upgraded his apartment, and it is in a better part of Konoha, and boy, what a upgrade. You see, his new apartment is huge, or at least way bigger than his last one, and not chipping away, that's for damn sure. This one has 2 bathrooms, one in the hallway and one in his bedroom. The one in the hallway is smaller than the one in the bedroom. Not by much, the only difference is, the bedroom one has a shower and tub, the hallway bathroom only has a tub, a big one too. And did he mention that the shower and tub had hot and cold water too? Moving on, let's get to the bedroom, there are 3. You're probably wondering why one guy needed 3 bedrooms. You're going to find out later. In his bedroom, the master bedroom obviously, with the bathroom and stuff. He has this gigantic bed, comfiest thing he ever slept on, not to mention the room was quite big too, the closet is like a mini room. The other 2 bedrooms were partially the same, just smaller, and no bathroom. The apartment also has a living room that's connected to the kitchen, both were you standard thing if you asked him. Second, this blonde was confirmed next Hokage whenever the lazy Kakashi stepped down. That is a lifetime goal for this blonde and to know he will eventually get it soon is something that made him beyond ecstatic. Lastly though, the blonde man is dating a beautiful girl called Hinata Hyuga. Have you heard about her? Seen her? Are you jealous? You should be. They have been dating for like 5 to 6 months now. Their relationship has spiced up too, meaning, he could touch those big of hers now. And this is where the deluxe apartment came in, cause you see, this is one of those long-term things and he wasn't planning on waiting to get her alone at all times of the day. He wasn't gonna ask her to move in just yet. Life for one, Uzumaki Naruto, couldn't get any better. He has a nice place to live, he is loved by his village, going to be future Hokage, has a hot girlfriend, and is freaking insanely good looking. Pushing it. But either way, life couldn't get any better. Except, it could get worse. Ran through his mind as he slept on the couch of his own apartment. 2 hours ago. Are you joking, Kakashi? The white-haired Hokage smiled at his former student, still as rowdy as ever. I can assure you I am not joking, Naruto. He said, tapping his hand on his desk. Consider it a mission. He continued, no longer smiling at the blonde, serious now. You haven't been on one of those in a bit, have you? He added as his eyes went to the people in the room with him. Of course, he would have to make a contract to make it an official mission. The work just keeps piling up. Now he sees why Tsunade was always drunk on the job. A mission Naruto muttered as his eyes went to the other 3 occupants in the room. He frowned. I don't know, Kakashi. He said, looking over one of them specifically with a light blush, that one also smirked at him. The Hokage sighed. Look at it like this. He started getting Naruto's full attention. This one, Tayuya, and this one, Karen, are both Uzumaki. He informed, shocking the blonde. Kakashi smirked. He wasn't lying. Comparing your blood within theirs, they were matches, so consider that. He added offhandedly. Their blood matched, but he, personally, didn't think they were close relatives, though with Karen's vibrant red hair, she could be closer than the other when it came to Naruto's direct family tree. Naruto looked wide-eyed at the 2 women. They are Uzumaki. Looking at Tayuya. He remembers her, she was one of the ones that helped Sasuke escape to Orochimaru. He frowned, then he sighed. People change, she could be the nicest person now for all he knew. He glossed over her attire, She's wearing a black long-sleeve crop top, and black kunoichi shorts, in other words, tights shorts. She also had on black ninja sandals. Overall, look, and she knew it too with that damned look she's giving him. Don't expect for me to call Nissan shit for brains. The girl said as she crossed her arms under her small bust. Nice. Had he said that? Wouldn't expect you to short stuff. He insulted back, glaring at her. She returned it, even more intensely in fact. What did she expect? For him to take her insult in stride or something? Ignoring the girl, his eyes traveled over to Karen. She was allies with Sasuke, wasn't she? She also has red hair like Tayuya. But the shade is like his mom's hair color. He watches as she readjusts her glasses and seemed to be eyeing him up just like he was doing her. She was wearing the same navel-revealing outfit he saw her in the last time he had seen her. Overall, again, look. She then smirked at him, and he noted that this girl is also odd. He couldn't remember a conversation he has had with her, so hopefully she's nice. But either way, they both are Uzumaki. He couldn't turn away family, even if they were enemies at one point and time. He can forgive and forget. He then looked over their attire again. He would have to get them to wear more suitable clothing though if they are going to live with him. And I don't have to tell you about this one, do I? Kakashi started as he eyed his other former student, who during all this time was looking at her blonde teammate with curious eyes. I may regret this, he thought, but he couldn't exactly think of anyone else to put Sasuke with. He couldn't very well let her live alone, and be up to her own devices. He has been to Naruto's new place, more than big enough to house 4 people. And finally, the blonde's eyes went to the raven-haired Avenger. He didn't meet her eyes though. He just couldn't. He knows she has that hair in a messy long ponytail, is staring at him. She's wearing the same outfit as Karen except hers is grayish and she doesn't have it zipped up. Her cleavage is wrapped up in black bandages, and she is toned. He coughed a bit, can't be thinking of her body. And the shorts, where Karen's are a obvious loose fit, Sasuke's hugged her. He chose not to see just how tight they hugged her. The thigh-high socks are purple, and the sandals black. Overall, once again, a look, and this being Sasuke made it worse, cause he's attracted to her in that way. You see, Sasuke has always, and he does mean always, been attractive. It's the personality that made her unattractive, at least to him. Until this certain event. Well, he wasn't going to into detail. He's already a bit too excited as is. Don't stare too long, I might blush. He heard her mature but still sweet voice say. Damn, she caught him staring. She put a hand on her hip, a wide grin on her face. I don't know about that one. Naruto bellowed to his old sensei, swiping his hand in Sasuke's general direction. Those two, fine, if they are really family, but that one. Doesn't she have like a whole compound to live in? He asked, his eyes going to the Uchiha only for a second. Instead of Kakashi responding, Sasuke did. Well, that would have been ideal, but. She started, her eyes going to her former sensei. Someone doesn't trust me enough to live alone yet. She growled at him. He gave her a sheepish look. She simply turned her eyes back to the Uzumaki, the blonde one, a much more attractive sight. I wonder if he thinks about me at all still. Then she scoffed at her own thought. Of course he does. Naruto frowned at that. Looking to Kakashi for confirmation, he nodded. The blonde sighed. Just great, but he understood why. He looked from the Hokage to Tayuya, then to Karen, then he eyed Sasuke. They all had one thing in common. They all had on very alluring clothing. Okay, if they are staying with me, they can't be walking around like that. Wouldn't want Hinata getting the wrong idea. He said, with a heavy blush. Tough luck. Tayuya was the first to holler. She stomped up to Naruto. Just cause you are my new pimp don't mean you get to tell me what to wear, got me? She yelled in his face. He was taken aback by her reaction. Damn, he sure always got the freaking feisty ones. She stepped back once she saw him nod. Karen raised an eyebrow while tilting her head to examine her clothing. She wasn't wearing anything too explicit, unlike Sasuke over here. That means the blonde found her state of attire enticing, the possibilities. The raven-haired face froze, her eyes locked onto Naruto's. So that Hyuga had the balls to go after my things. She thought as a frown formed. Well, it wasn't exactly hers anymore. She left it here for anyone to take when she abandoned the village, but that's beside the point. What's hers is hers, damn it. And of all the women, he had to get with Hinata. Why not Sakura? She's more like her. And so what, she didn't come back to the village right away after the war. He's still hers. I think you have your answers to that, besides it's not like I can choose what they wear anyway. Kakashi finally answered. He hopes this doesn't put a strain on his relationship with Hinata. His eyes went to Sasuke. He knows the two has a erotic history, and he still didn't quite know the Uchiha's motives for wanting to come back fully. He sighed. Not that it mattered right now. At least tell them to follow my orders, seeing as I'm their patron, not pimp. He said, emphasizing the word Tayuya used with a snare. He heard Sasuke snort. He knew he wasn't gonna be bossing her around, but he can try at least. Kakashi nodded. That I can do, Sasuke, Karen, Tayuya. He said, using his deep authoritative voice. It got their attention, except Sasuke. He knew the girl is listening though. Naruto here is going to be like a patron to you. So in other words, like a pimp some would say. He mused at the end there. Naruto glared at him. All things you need and do is to go through him first, therefore, you have to listen to him when he wants you to do something. He finished with a stern tone, directed at Sasuke. This won't last forever, just long enough he knew they could be trusted, though he might lighten up on Tayuya. She didn't really have anything or anyone outside of the village, anymore at least. All things I need Tayuya spoke, a light blush on her cheeks. Naruto guffawed at the meaning of that, and Kakashi fanned himself with his hand. And come to think of it, aren't you quite the looker? She said out loud, staring at him in a new way, lustful way. She was hardly put off by the fact they are related in some way, she hardly knew him. But she knows he's quite hot, and if she's going to be living off him, why not repay him somehow? Sasuke immediately glared at the redhead. She remembers the chick a smudge, that's it. Back off was the only words she spoke. She would kill this chick here and now if she has to. Bad enough he was dating the Hyuga, she didn't need some random slut trying get a ride on her man too. Turning towards Sasuke, the red-haired girl growled. What the air you gonna do about it? She roared. She wasn't scared of the girl. And who was she to tell her to back off? Karen looked Naruto over. She had digested all that was said. She couldn't say she liked it, but Sasuke didn't seem to mind, and really seemed to be into this guy. She could see why. He is attractive, and if his personality is really like it's said to be, that added another plus there too. Though by the look her friend is giving to Yuya, looks like she'll kill anyone who tries to touch him. She must be also thinking of ways to kill that girl he's seeing. Now ladies, Naruto is a taken man. Kakashi said, momentarily diffusing the situation, and realizing it was partly his fault, he could have worded things better. He chuckled as he caught Sasuke's glare. Naruto, I'll have the mission contract for you to sign later, and I'll be giving you a steady stream of money to make sure all is taken care of. He said, then looked at the time. Now if you don't mind, I do have a break. Just like that, his life was freaking twisted on its head. 30 minutes ago. Nice place. Tayuya said as she threw herself all over the couch. And she wasn't lying either, it's a nice little place and it's cozy. Also got dibs on the big room. She said out loud for anyone to hear. Before Naruto, who is sitting at the kitchen table eating, could respond, Sasuke snorted. That would be my room. She countered. She already threw her clothes bag in the closet. She did see all Naruto's little outfits, he didn't have much. Though, I wouldn't mind sharing it with Naruto. She added with a wink at Naruto. He blushed. She smirked. We'll see how deep that little weak Hyuga has her claws in you. Plus that bedroom has its own bathroom, of course that would be hers. Naruto again opened his mouth to respond, but was beat to the punch. Oh please, you wouldn't know the first thing to do. She laughed out. And yes, she has had plenty of it. Her old village had special relief rooms, and she used them quite a lot, until that dreadful mission in the coma. She planned to get back in the thick of things, with the blonde over there, related or not. The blonde in question didn't even open his mouth, his eyes went Sasuke who just snorted. You think so do you? She started as she made her way to the hallway, her eyes flashing to Naruto. Tayuya didn't know how wrong she was, though it's been while and she is more than sure he is way bigger than what she could possibly remember, the point still stands. She stopped before she disappeared in the hallway, ignoring the annoying redhead for now. My offer is still open, and tomorrow you will take me shopping, for food, clothes and other things. She informed, then continued on to the room she just hijacked basically. She had clothes but not many. As for the food, she wasn't planning on living off ramen. TCH, just a room anyway, I'll take the one on the right then. She said as she hopped up, then walked to Naruto. Now that she's gone, listen, I don't really have a change of clothes, so could I borrow some until you take me clothes shopping, Pimp Daddy? She asked, voice full of humor. Naruto noted despite the brash humor, she didn't look as self-strong as before, obviously asking for things isn't something she likes to do. He nodded still, choosing to ignore the Pimp Daddy comment. Of course, but they are in the room, with Sasuke. And I don't plan on going in there, alone with her. He said with a shaky smile. He loved that room but he wasn't going to be sleeping in there with Sasuke, cause he doubted he would be getting any actual sleep. Or going in there anytime soon. He would take the last room, but Karen had already went up in it and never came out. She did look pretty tired. And like Tayuya said, it's just a room. That has a nice comfy bed, its own bathroom. He sighed, wonder how long he would have to be their freaking patron. Oh calm your, I'm not talking right now, later. She said, giving him a knowing look. Obviously him and bitch girl had something going between them. She yawned, damn she's tired. She gave Naruto a coy look. You could room with me instead. She asked, mischief obviously in her voice. He shook his head vigorously. If he wasn't going to share a bed with one girl, he damn sure wasn't going to with another, even if they are related, and judging by her constant come-ons, that's a fact she could give zero about. Suit yourself. She teased as she walked into the hallway then went in her new room. She's sure she will have plenty of time to work him over in the coming future. The couch it is then. No, Naruto-kun, a voice squealed. This, Naruto, chuckled. Oh come on Hinata-hime, you know I like touching your big soft tits. Naruto growled as continued to grope Hinata. She is currently under him, not exactly fighting him, but definitely squirming under his might. Her blush deepened, his compliment obviously of her ample is both exciting her and caused her major embarrassment. Instead of responding this time, she simple squeezed her eyes shut as she let her boyfriend molest her chest, it's not like she didn't like it anyway. Cat got your tongue babe? He asked as his ran a finger over her hardened nipples. She whimpered, not replying still. Tell me, he started while flicking the hard pebbles. Do you wear these thin shirts to tempt me my hime? He asked, giving he a tight squeeze then resumed assaulting her nipples. She nodded, her eyes opening to look at him lovingly. Yes, ever since you said you loved my bust size, I have had no desire to hide them from you Naruto-kun. She explained, her voice normal, despite the lidded eyes and blush. He'd have thought she'd sound more seductive, or horse like the other times, giving the look on her face. But nonetheless, he smiled at her answer. It's so freaking his Hinata, he loves this girl. Always thinking of him, unlike a certain Avenger. His smile turned into a mischievous smirk. In that case, it's high time I got to see these beautiful mounds. He cued, then gripped her thin shirt tightly. He was about to pull, then he stopped. Naruto looked up. He sniffed. Someone cooking ramen. He asked no one in particular. And not just any ramen either, his favorite, miso ramen. Someone was about to make his day. Then he remembered his girlfriend under him, the ramen can wait. He looked down. He froze. His eyes widened in horror and somewhere deep in there, lust. Well, hi there, big boy. You thought you could escape me by sleeping on the couch. Sasuke said with an edge to her voice. Then in a blink of an eye, she flipped Naruto and straddled him, pinning him down. Only then did Naruto notice her. What the? Ready to be mine again? She growled as she grabbed his shirt and ripped it off of him. She was going to take him like she way back then, and he would enjoy it, like he did way back then. No. Ooh. Naruto screamed while he sat up. His eyes widened. That was a dream. Ah. He froze, then he heard a couple of giggles. Seems the Dobi had a nightmare. He heard Sasuke snicker. His eyes slowly went over to where he heard her voice. She was sitting at his kitchen table, along with Karen and Tayuya, and they all are eating his ramen. Oh, I think it was more than a nightmare. The red Spitfire said suggestively. She had got a good look at the bulge in his pants, he was packing some serious heat. Tayuya licked her lips. Not to mention, the guy was moaning and groaning while moving around. It doesn't take a genius to know what the blonde was having a dream about. That made Tayuya wonder if she had any part of it at all. Why are you eating my ramen? Naruto asked forcefully as he stood from the crouch. Then he instantly regretted it as he felt the strain of his erection against his pants. Thank Kami he slept with all his clothes on, or this situation could have been way worse, or way. No, he didn't want to think about that. All the girls stopped eating, their eyes wide as they stared at him, with his very apparent bulge. Well damn. Sasuke said, stopping mid-chew, then resumed, not averting her gaze. Karen blushed for the first time in what felt like forever, well, a blush not being of embarrassment or humiliation. This blush was of excitement. She didn't know, she's never stared so openly at a man's area before like this. The other redhead in the room whistled. That baby looks way bigger standing up. Why don't you whip out the poor boy and let me help him out? Tayuya said, her eyebrows wagging suggestively. She wasn't lying either. He looked way bigger standing up. She'd bet his was in serious pain right now. She paused. Did it just twitch? She thought, then smirked knowingly. It did. A growl was her response. Sasuke glowered at the redhead. Stop trying tea. I am gonna go take a shower. Naruto said abruptly, then ran into the hallway, into his, Sasuke's room, shutting and locking the door behind him, then hurried into the bathroom per. He shut the door and also locked it. Well, we all pretty much know what he's gonna be doing in there. Tayuya said nonchalantly. He was probably going to bruise his pore from how hard she guessed he was about to jerk it. Though she wished she could help him, but she knows it's gonna take a lot more for her to get him to her. Don't get her wrong, she would take him by force if need be. She has needs, and he has a nice piece. She won't hesitate given the chance. It's not like he wouldn't enjoy it. The Uchiha stared at the entryway to the hallway. I hope not too long. She grumbled, then gazed at the clock. 12:45, it read. She was eager to go shopping, for various reasons. She looked down at the ramen that was still warm, for a multitude of reasons. Nodding her head in agreement, Karen sighed as she got up to empty out her ramen. She didn't like the flavor of it. The blush that was on her cheeks not even a minute ago was only a small hue now. She chose not to think about Naruto masturbating in the shower. The blush returned, too late. Sasuke's head snapped to the loud-mouthed redhead suddenly. The girl had a deep blush on her face and a shit-eating grin on her face. The slut was thinking about her man. You need to back the off of Naruto. She growled at the redhead. Even thought Hinata was the more serious competition. This red-headed slut only made matters worse. The girl snapped to attention. She blinked twice before fully processing what she had heard. She then glared at the Uchiha. Who the hell are you to tell me what to do? She roared back at the raven-haired girl. And for sakes, you saw the same damn bulge I saw, you can share. She added. How stingy of the bitch to think she can have all Naruto for herself. The Uchiha's glare intensified, her right eye even threatening to change colors. You are pushing it, was the only thing she said, her hands clenched into fist. She would obliterate this girl if she has to, relative of Naruto or not. Tayuya clicked her tongue as she sat back nonchalantly, not at all affected by the Uchiha's anger show. Oh, that's right, he's not even yours to share. She goaded purposefully, this bitch and the horse she rode in on. I told you. She replied coldly. She was about to stand and then assault and possibly maim the red-head slut until she felt hands on her shoulders. The Uchiha growled. Karen, move away. Sasuke ordered, not even looking back, her eyes focused solely on the other redhead who was still glaring at her. The other Uzumaki girl shook her head. No, I think it's best that me and you go wait on the couch until Naruto-san is out of the shower. She said, her voice low. Sasuke grunted her disagreement. Beating the shit out of Tayuya seemed much more fun right now. I'm sure Naruto-san wouldn't like it if you destroyed his apartment and killed Tayuya. She added coolly, massaging her friend's shoulders, hoping this helped calm her down. The last thing they needed right now was to kill someone within a day of being in Konoha. The raven-haired girl had half the mind to tell her friend to off. But then again realized she was right. If she was going to win Naruto back from the Hyuga, she couldn't afford to kill the slut across from her. Though, she doubted she would have damaged his apartment if she did decide to do so. Leaving bloody remains of Tayuya scattered around isn't damaging his apartment, is it? Letting out a sigh, Sasuke got up and allowed Karen to guide her to the couch. Tayuya watched them go over and sit on the couch. Not knowing whether to be relieved or not, she was sure she couldn't take the girl in a fight, but she wasn't about to let that bitch walk all over her. She huffed. 15 minutes later. All the girls looked up as they heard the bedroom door open, then heard footsteps coming out of the hallway. Naruto emerged from the hallway looking refreshed and dressed in a black long-sleeve shirt, orange pants, and black sandals. You were in there for like an hour. Tayuya exaggerated, looking him up and down. The shirt was a nice fit on him, which means, she can make out the muscle definition a little. She's impressed. I could have helped, would have been quicker. She jested with a sigh, though that could also be true, she wouldn't have minded if he asked. Tayuya chose to ignore the glare she was sure she received from the Uchiha. Naruto looked at the time. I was in there for that long. Naruto asked, blushing a bit. He had to handle himself in there. He's more than surprised Sasuke didn't try and follow him in, or Tayuya, given how she is toward him. A grunt was his response. Sasuke turned her glare to Naruto. No, but you were in there long enough. She said, standing up to walk and stand in front of him, Karen following her, her head nodded in agreement to what her friend said. The blonde looked at his old friend, enemy confused. What's got her all impatient? He thought, looking her in the eyes. Her bangs covered her left side, hiding her special eye, so basically he was looking in her right eye. Instead of replying, the Uchiha crossed her arms under her chest, making his gaze drop only for a second. I believe you are to take us shopping for clothes and other necessities. Karen explained for her friend, leader, master. She readjusted her glasses once she saw his eyes go to her. So you can talk? Naruto asked with mock excitement, but he did look back to Sasuke. I haven't went to Kakashi yet. He informed. He didn't want to waste his own money if he didn't have to. Sasuke sneered at that. You're Naruto Uzumaki. She stated exasperated. The blonde could buy out the Hyuga compound if he wanted to. She highly doubted he even needed the Hokage's chump change to be their patron. You're more than loaded Naruto, and don't even try to lie and say you are not. She growled, looking him up and down, sizing him up. Plus she doubts this place he has was cheap. The girl still sitting at the table, Tayuya, her ears perked up at that. She was mildly following their little conversation until now. So we have a rich pimp she thought, looking at Naruto. Sure, she kind of suspected he had heavy pockets, but the fact this village's Hokage planned to send him money to help be their patron, that had planted a seed of doubt on his wealth. She watched his face intently. Naruto scowled at Sasuke. My money and money I use on this mission is to be kept separate. He growled back. The response was a loud snort. Oh please. On top of the fact that it's Kakashi we are talking about should tell you everything. She laughed out. The blonde looked at her confused, not entirely sure what she meant. She smirked at him. Kakashi equals lazy. I highly doubt he even wrote a mission contract yet. And I very highly doubt the money that he will send is going to be substantial enough to support us all. She said. At the end there, she gestured to herself, Tayuya, and Karen with a long wave. Not to mention I'm sure he knows you are well stacked on your own. She added offhandedly. Karen and Tayuya looked on. Neither really knew the Hokage, so they'd let these two hash this out, for different reasons of course. One found it entertaining to watch someone other than herself argue with the Uchiha, the other figuring it's not her place to speak on something she isn't versed in. Well, that made a little too much sense to him. Naruto sighed. His sensei is indeed lazy at the job. He'd hoped that the mission he gave Naruto would hold enough priority that he would forego his laziness for however long it took to write up a contract, but then again this is Kakashi, he'll get to it eventually if not now. That brings him to the other stuff she said, that would also be true to a point. He could always ask to be provided with more money, but his sensei knows Naruto's well off on his own. He could easily take care of Sasuke, Karen, and Tayuya with his own money. But he didn't want to if he didn't have to. Fine. He finally sounded. He would have to, at least until he saw how much money Kakashi would provide. Oh good, firstly. A now hyper Sasuke chirped, her hands clapping together. She looked toward Karen then at Tayuya. Do you want some kind of special food slut? She asked the redhead without glasses. No bitch girl san, I'm okay with ramen. Was her reply. Ignoring the bitch girl comment, Sasuke looked back at Naruto, he sighed. I want tomato soup. Then I want you to get tomato sauce and noodles. You know, the long ones in the pack, so I can make good old tomato pasta, then of course you have to get actual tomatoes. She informed with a wide grin. Naruto's nose scrunched up. He could just imagine the smell of that shit. Don't make that face, you'll love it. She said gleefully, she'd make him eat it if she had to. As for Karen here, just get pancake mix, she'll do the rest. She finished. His eyes flew to Karen, she likes pancakes. He didn't know why that surprises him, he'd thought she would like things Sasuke liked. He smiled a bit as his eyes went back to Sasuke. He knew he'd just love Karen if he could get her to talk more, or at least he thinks he would. Aren't all quiet types nice? You want me to go get this stuff now? He asked while patting his pockets. He felt his wallet in the right one. No, you are coming with us. Clothes shopping, your clones are gonna go get the food. She informed. She didn't know why he was so slow. The guy can make hundreds of clones but still decided to do things one by one. Tayuya smirked at that, her eyes going to Sasuke. She didn't like the girl very much but damn the bitch played that well. I am so not coming with your guys to clothes shop. He growled. That's the last thing he needed to go right now. What if Hinata caught him with 3 girls, taking them shopping? He couldn't begin to know how to explain things to her. Why couldn't he get a clone to do this part? Instead of Sasuke responding, Tayuya finally spoke. I quite like that idea, Pimp Daddy. You can tell me just what you want me to wear. She said, a sly grin forming on her face, with a light blush. The Uchiha nudged Karen when Naruto looked toward Tayuya. The girl almost yelped at the unexpected elbow, but she knew what Sasuke wanted her to do. Yes, Naruto-san, we would very much like you to attend with us and help us select clothing, Pimp Daddy. She spoke hurriedly. The Pimp Daddy part sounded foreign to her tongue. Sasuke held back a roar of laughter. Tayuya snorted. While the only male in the room again looked at Karen surprised. Women are so confusing, going through his head. Finally schooling herself, Sasuke took a deep breath. See. Think we kinda outvote our patron here. You have to come with us. Plus. She said, stalking up to him, then leaning in so she was very close. He blinked stupidly. Was she gonna kiss him? I know little Naruto will appreciate this, won't he? She asked, her voice low enough so only he could hear her. Naruto shook his head as he stepped back. It just wasn't fair, 3-on-1. Not to mention 3 girls on 1 guy. How could he deny 3 girls? One being one that he had some type of feelings for, and 2 others being family. Peer pressure is strong here. Fine, but I'm not going in with you guys. He said defiantly as he made 2 clones. He wouldn't budge on this. There is no way he would he? Wanna bet on that, Naruto-kun? Sasuke asked. He looked at her surprised. Since when did she call him that? She smirked at him. Ever heard me beg before? She asked, then looked back at Karen. The girl nodded. His surprise grew into shock. The redhead girl looked at him with the most innocent expression he has ever seen. Sasuke smirked. No man could withstand this. They've duped countless men out of money with a little ear-coaxing and innocent looks. Looks like Naruto, the savior. Uzumaki would be no different. Hello. Welcome to Konoha's Women Apparel. A cheery middle-aged woman chirped, her smile wide, showing her perfect teeth. Sasuke grimaced a bit. The lady was a little too enthusiastic. She shook the thought away. She looked to her side. So Sakura, what would you recommend? She asked the pinkett, who stood at attention like she was just asked a question by the Hokage. The pink-haired girl is indeed with them, right beside Sasuke. She saw them walking and decided to join them. She was surprised to see the Uchiha back, and with Naruto. Okay, that's a lie. She knows their history, so she wasn't that surprised. They, mostly Karen and Naruto, explained to her their situation. The pinkett wasn't sure how to feel about that. On one hand, she'd happily be the patron of Sasuke and her friend, not so much the foul-mouthed girl, but still would take her in, and she's damn sure it would be more comfortable for Naruto. But on the other hand, Sasuke, Karen and this Tayuya girl didn't seem to mind really living with a guy, and there's also the fact Sasuke and the Tayuya girl looked very offended when she suggested she be their patron. Why don't we ask her? Sakura said, nodding to the happy lady at the desk. She then looked back at Naruto, who still looked very uncomfortable. She felt bad for him. She could only wonder if she, herself, was in a man's clothing place with a bunch of guys. Would she be just as uncomfortable? Most definitely, though she wasn't any guy's patron, so she wouldn't ever be in that type of situation. Naruto simply sighed. In a way, he was glad Sakura tagged along. She wasn't that much like Sasuke anymore. Sure, some of the Uchiha's persona still rubbed off on her, but she has enough of her own personality for her not to be a wannabe Sasuke, unlike a certain Yamanaka. Basically, she's like a friend here. Not that Sasuke isn't, mind you, but if you can't tell, she's sorta after his. Literally. Dark and. He heard. His ears perked up while his eyes shot to the voice, the desk lady. She was speaking to Sakura. I'm sure this one and that one would like that section. She spoke again, nodding to Sasuke and Karen. Though, you could also go there as well. She continued, looking at Sakura more intensely, studying her. But I don't think dark clothes go with your vibrant hair color. She informed, her eyes then going to Tayuya. She looked her up and down. If you like crop tops, rebellious and snarky section is for you. She said while already eyeing up Naruto. Hero of the Leafy H. I don't think we have anything here, foe. Oh no, I'm not here to shop. I'm just the guy that's gonna pay is all. He explained hurriedly, flustered. I mean it's okay if you. He's not gay. Sasuke said dryly, getting the lady's attention. She narrowed her eyes at her. Naruto scratched the back of his hand. That's the first time anyone has ever accused him of being gay, and for once, he's glad Sasuke was here. Are there changing rooms to try out the clothes? She asked abruptly. The lady nodded. Is it okay if he comes along? She asked, pointing her thumb toward Naruto, who narrowed his eyes at her. The lady eyed them suspiciously now. Yay. But no funny business. And if it does get funny, at least clean up after yourselves. She said, her eyes narrowed too. Damn kinky people. Naruto almost fell over from shock at that statement by the lady. The area you want to go is that way. She said, pointing down the hall of the small mall-like clothes shop. And for you, you want to go that way. She said, looking at Tayuya and pointing the other way. Thank you. Sasuke said as she turned to grab Naruto. Karen, you are with me. Sakura, go with the slut. She ordered. She got a surprised look from the pink-haired girl. She obviously didn't like the idea of being alone with Tayuya and possibly get verbally abused. Tayuya glared at the Uchiha. When she tried to turn and walk, in the process, trying to pull Naruto with her, he didn't budge. She looked at him, a little irritation showing. I don't think this is a very good idea. He spoke, looking toward the area she wanted to go. Recovered fully from his shock also. Yay, why does Pimp Daddy get to go with you, bitch? The redhead asked, looking the Uchiha up and down herself. Seriously, Naruto was the patron here, wasn't he? Why was this bitch giving orders like she was paying for something? Granted, Naruto didn't exactly want to be here, but still. Sakura looked at the loud girl with shock. Obviously never heard anyone call Naruto, Pimp Daddy. Or call Sasuke a bitch to her face. Her response was an amused look from Sasuke, no verbal one. She looked to Naruto. Oh come on, I thought we were over your pansy stuff a long time ago. She chirped, causing Naruto to blush a bit as the memory came to mind. He immediately shook his head. He didn't want to be thinking of that right now. Sasuke, was his simple reply, his eyes finding hers. I really don't think this is a good idea, he said again, putting more emphasis on his words, while also thinking of his relationship with Hinata. He could sense and feel deep in his being that his sweet Haim would be heartbroken to find out of this situation he is in. Even though she isn't here, he could see play out in his head, her sad lavender eyes. Naruto loathes the thought. As if reading his mind, Sasuke turns full body to Naruto, eyeing him intently. This is about the Hyuga girl, isn't it? She asked, but she already knew the answer. Sasuke tilted her head to Karen, who met her eyes immediately. Sasuke blinked 3 times then winked. Your silence tells me everything, Naruto. She sang his name as her left hand went his shoulder. Naruto clenched his teeth, the world seemingly freezing around them, at least to him. Her singing his name forcing him to remember things he really wished didn't surface at this current time. Think of Hinata, he said to himself, closing his eyes, blowing out a single breath. It worked. Only for a second. Naru-sama. A voice rang in his ear. His eyes opened and quickly went to the source of said voice. Karen was an inch away from his face, looking at him innocently like before. He clenched his teeth harder. Don't you dare. Hinata. Was his thought. We could really use your help in picking out the perfect outfits. She whispered in his ear, sending chills down his spine. To make matters worse, he felt Sasuke get closer. His eyes went to her. And do you really want to stand here with this massive erection? She whispered coyly, her eyes going down, and indeed, Naruto Jr. was trying to poke a hole through his pants. Her reply was stoic from Naruto. She rolls her eyes, we only need your eyes and a verbal confirmation. Her eyes going to Karen then back to him. Naruto groaned as he felt Karen press her body against his, her arms going around his waist, her ample bosom squishing against his back, and he could swear he feels something poking him where her are. Are those her? Think of my Heim. He thought, trying to banish the feeling and accompanying thought, but it was hard, seeing that her arms were tightly woven around him and she's pressing her full body onto him. Please. She begged shamelessly. His will broke. Fine. Naruto grumbled. Karen let him go and immediately stepped away from him. She blew a quiet breath out herself, a deep blush on her cheeks. Naruto looked over to her. His eyes went to her chest. Her nipples were hard, noticeable even through the fabric of her attire. His eyes went back to Sasuke, who looked absolutely amused. Fine. He blew out again. Her hand on his shoulder went to the collar of his shirt. She smiled victoriously as she hooked a finger with it, then turned and started walking toward dark and section. Naruto following this time, albeit kinda slow. Karen right behind them. And just think, that wasn't even me begging, she gloated. This whole exchange was witnessed by Sakura, Tayuya, the shop clerk, and a random girl. Those bitches are good. Tayuya was the first to speak as they walked out of sight. She could compete with bitch girl, but if they are gonna tag team him, she really didn't see how she stood a chance. Maybe she needed an accomplice too. Her eyes went to Sakura, who hadn't picked her jaw from the floor yet. She didn't know the pink chick at all, but from their little interaction, maybe, she pondered in her head. Sakura couldn't at all believe what she saw. Sure, she was around them when they had their thing going in their team, but she never saw it like this. She really hasn't saw a kunoichi use such seductive tactics, ever. They were trained to use the basics, but it was never her style, and she had thought it would be beneath someone like Sasuke, and Karen appeared nice as well. It is effective, she thought as she finally gathered herself. She could never see herself personally using such tactics. She'd be ready to pummel a man who harmlessly whistles at her, let alone possibly touch her. Ino is always right. I'm such a prude. She thought dreadfully. The clerk had a deep blush on her face. She was blinking relentlessly. It's like he had a log in his pants, was her thought. She had a view of them that Sakura and Tayuya didn't. I'm a married woman, I can't think of such things, but if I had the chance. She thought on, eyes glazing over a bit as she got lost in imagination of fun times with the hero of the leaf. The random girl pulled out a notebook titled, Hot L Fanclub Scout Book, in which she scribbled. Sasuke has a new friend, they have a manipulated Naruto-sama into shopping with them. I personally believe the raven-haired demon put him in a genjutsu, and her sultan friend pressing her nasty body against him. She also is tall, red-headed and quite busty. I only stared a little, and was disapproving the whole time. She finished writing in her little book, then scanned it over. She closed it and put it away. She looked at Sakura and Tayuya, who hadn't seen her yet. She focused on Tayuya. Enemy as well, I bet, she thought as she backed away and left the shop. Pankora, Tayuya bellowed, getting Sakura's attention, and a frown. Pankora gave the foul-mouthed girl a sigh. It's Sakura, she corrected. Yay, whatever. She waved off, not really caring. I need you to be my partner in crime. She added excitedly, smirking at the pinkett. The girl was fine looking for Tayuya, though the vibrant pink hair hurt the eyes, that could be fixed with a little dye her, and a ponytail there. A scoff was her reply. And what for? Sakura said, only wanting to hear what the girl had to say before shooting it down. Well, bitch Jiri and I can't believe Sasuke lets you call her that. Sakura interrupted. She has witnessed Sasuke break people just for calling her a slut before. She couldn't fathom how someone so foul-mouthed can get away with calling the Uchiha a bitch. Tayuya blew out a breath, obviously not liking the interruption. I'm not scared of that slut. She growled. Sakura smiled nervously. Now, as I was saying, bitch girl and pimp daddy Al. And I really can't see why Naruto lets you call him that. He's not a pimp, nor are Sasuke or Karen workers. Quote. She interrupted again, also pondering the idea of Naruto as a pimp, she just couldn't see it. And I believe you aren't as well. She added, she had prior history with Sasuke and Karen, so she knew they wouldn't snoop so low as to sell their bodies, but they did use the seductive tactic on Naruto. She remembered, maybe she didn't know them as well as she would hope to. Once again, Tayuya blew out a breath, this time, more aggravated. I have to go to him for money, he has to buy me everything, and I live with him, and I can't exactly go anywhere without him, therefore he is my pimp and daddy, she explained. Sakura pressed a finger to her lips, thinking of what she just heard. As I was saying, bitch girl. She stopped, looking at Sakura. No interruption. And pimp daddy, she stopped again, glancing at Sakura before she continued. Already have a history with EAC other, so I am behind already, and she has a hell. But wouldn't that just make him you guys' patron more akin to a caretaker, not a pimp or a father? She interrupted abruptly, speaking out her thoughts aloud. Instead of replying, Tayuya simply turned around and went in the direction of, rebellious and snarky. Come on, Pinktard, let's shop. She insulted, she would simply just step her game up. She didn't need an accomplice, especially one that couldn't shut up. Dealing with bitch girl is one thing, dealing with someone who asks a billion questions is another. I don't like explaining shit. She ranted in her mind as Sakura followed, realizing she might have angered the redhead. Darkened section. Naruto sat in the room with his arms crossed. The section was of course dimly lit, with purple and white lights. Sasuke and Karen enthusiastically searching around together for clothes to try on. He tried not to think about it much. Or how weak his will is. But it's like a real live no just su they used on me, he defended, and Karen. He couldn't stop himself from remembering the feel of her on him, an image of her hard nipples. Wonder if they are the same color as her hair. There you go, let yourself wonder. A booming voice spoke out deep in his mind. Naruto sighed. Kurama. He accidentally said aloud. He looked around quickly. The two girls were busy picking out clothes, of which they seemed to have a lot. He heard a loud snickering. What do you want? Naruto asked his tenant. The fox usually doesn't talk. Boy, your stress is my stress. Imagine being woken and being as excited as you were while being seduced by those two vixens. The fox growled when it finished speaking. I really don't want to imagine that. Naruto joked. Kurama didn't laugh. He heard a louder growl. I don't see why you put up with it, the lust. The Uchiha is obviously ready, and willing. You could easily relieve such an overwhelming tension. She even has a friend who also appears ready, and willing. You could do both since they love to double team us so. Hinata, was Naruto's reply, who then remembered why he shouldn't be here. He balled his hand into a tight fist. I'm sorry Hina Haim, I'm so weak. The cinnamon Hyuga, she is most definitely ready and willing, why not her then? She already lets you ravage her chest. You could easily take it further, the fox suggested, sending images of Naruto groping Hinata on previous occasions. Naruto just shook away the thought. I want our first time to be romantic. Not a lust brought on by Sasuke and her friend. She deserves better than that. He fought back furiously. He was met with a deep laughter. Now imagine this fire you have with me presented to Sasuke, and the redhead. The fox replied. Truthfully, I do not care if you the Uchiha or Hyuga or the others. I only care that you. This feeling is unbearable. It continued, growling again before it went completely quiet. Easier said than done, he thought, but couldn't shake the feeling. The fox had a point, but could he? And how would Hinata react if he did? He hasn't ever actually tried to take it further. How does this look? He heard a voice ask. Brought back to the reality of the situation he currently is in, he looked ahead to the voice. He sucked in a breath as the blood in his body flew downward. Sasuke was dressed the same, but Karen, she is apparently being used as a live outfit model by the Uchiha. And she had on a purple and black bra and panties that were obviously 2 sizes too small for her. Karen. He managed to get out, absolutely shocked. Her body wasn't toned like Sasuke's but like all ninja, she was fit enough. That's not what drew his attention. The panties were hugging her like a second skin, wrapping tightly into her skin. He could make out a definite outline of her nether regions. His eyes traveled up her. The bra did the same thing her panties did, her threatening to spill out. Naruto gulped. Sasuke smirked. I think he likes that very much. You are keeping it. She chirped as she grabbed Karen's arm and took her back to the changing room. My turn, was her thought. That Hyuga didn't stand a chance. Butts it so tight, Karen cried as she was pulled away. Keat, the 9 tails roared. I know, he hurriedly said. The fox sending images of Naruto doing various things with various women. That is not helping right now, Kurama, Naruto yelled. Seriously, he couldn't catch a break. You do not know. It growled back. If you did, you would be in that changing room asserting dominance over them. Not sitting here with so much blood flowing away from your head, you might faint. Hinata. Naruto replied, calming himself, if only for a second. And what of her? Go assert yourself over her then. I will not tolerate much more. Naruto blocked the fox off speaking. Calm down, Kurama, he said in his mind. As he stared at his elongated nails, they retracted slowly. He blew a breath. Obviously this was affecting more than just him. I'm not a mindless animal, no offense, Kura. And what about me? He heard, interrupting his thought. His head snapped to the voice. He gasped. Sasuke stood there with a hand on her hip. Karen beside her with a blush on her cheek, now in a proper-sized same bra and panties as before, which if he wasn't preoccupied with staring at the raven-haired girl, he might have figured they did that first display on purpose. The bra and panties Sasuke had on were white with a grayish lace running over it, giving a faint hint of see-through. Uncontrollably, he started looking her over like he did Karen. Her cleavage aren't the size of Karen's, but through the bra he could just make out her nipple. He didn't even want to look down, he simply turned his head away. The damage was done, however. He could feel his member pressing vigorously against his pants, his eyes go back to her with his head still turned. Sasuke smiled slyly at Naruto as she strikes a few poses. Her chest finally free from the tight bandages felt great. It'd been years since she wore a proper fitted bra. She looked at Naruto, who instantly looked away. She smirked. If you like these, she said while walking to stand beside Karen, which snapped Naruto's attention right to them. We got a lot more to try on, she said as she lifted her hand to Karen's bra hook and snapped it off. The bra fell off. Naruto's whole world froze, his eyes wide. Karen immediately covered up. Sasuke, she reprimanded as she turned around and scurried off to the changing room. The Uchiha let out a laugh as she picked the bra. Naruto still looking absolutely shocked by what she just did. She then reached behind her and unhooked her own bra, revealing her hard dark nipples. She caught the bra before it hit the ground. Since you were staring so hard, she sang as she turned and walked back to the changing room, a noticeable jiggle in her. But in Naruto's head, kit 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 kiiiiiitt, are you just gonna sit and do nothing? Do something. Anything at all. A touch. A smell. So meet Hing. Kurama ranted loudly in Naruto's head. Owner of said head was ensnared in thought. They have grown. They were the same color of her hair, were the respective thoughts of Sasuke and Karen. This is gonna be a long day. Naruto studied the contents of his closet. He frowned at the sight before him. The girl, Sasuke, she had completely rearranged his closet. He didn't have much unique clothing as she did, but it still is his closet and his clothing. She had put his clothes to a single section of the closet while hers hung and were folded neatly all around his section, his eyes lingering a bit on her new attire he had just brought her. You done in there yet? He heard Sasuke say semi-loudly from behind the closed door, clear irritation in her voice. His frown deepened. He had locked the door to prevent her from trying anything as he looked for something to wear for his date with Hinata, which he didn't tell Sasuke about of course. Naruto then grew a bit frustrated all of a sudden. Isn't this my room? He thought aggressively. Why should I freaking rush? His anger continued as he balled his hands into fist, the nerve of her. That's it, Kit. Get angry. This is our home. She has no right to rush us, you show. Kurama's voice seemed to snap Naruto out of his angry trance. He shook his head as his tenant began protesting the decreasing of his anger, loudly. No, Kit. Get angry. Stay angry. She is your guest, yet she thinks she owns the place. No. You own her. Teach her a lesson, Kit. Make her see you are the master of this pack and not the other way around. The beast raged, giving Naruto a slight headache. Reaching up, Naruto proceeded to massage his temple, completely calm now. As I said before, Kurama, I am not an animal, so I will not behave like one. He retorted calmly as he went in the closet and picked him out a nice shirt and pants to wear for his date. He put them on as he was sure his overbearing friend wasn't done. The fox growled. I can feel your lust and your anger, Kit. Use them. It pleaded. It did not care who Naruto used them on. As long as the boy wasn't walking around with all this pent-up frustration, which in turn frustrated Kurama, the beast would have none of it. With a sigh, Naruto decided it was best to block Kurama for the time being. The fox would only make matters worse, it seems. Why couldn't the fox understand he just couldn't up in Sasuke? Or Tayuya? Or Karen either? He thought, hoping his tenant could still hear him even though he blocked him. The fox claims to feel his lust and frustration or anger, whatever. Why couldn't the fox feel his loyalty to Hinata? He just couldn't betray the girl that was so willing to give her life up for him, and he was beginning to love even. He paused. Was that why he is so against what the fox is demanding, saying? Did he love Hinata? He pondered over this in his head with a thoughtful expression. If he did, why couldn't the fox feel that? Are you seriously not done? A even more irritated Sasuke sounded from the door. I know I may take forever. Hell, Karen takes even longer. He could tell by the tone of her voice. She was amused even if irritated, or is it playful? A playful irritation. He can never tell with her. But you, a slight pause before she continue. Or a guy, you're supposed to be ready in like 5 minutes. She finished. He knew she was grinning as he started frowning, the nerve of her. I'll be right out, and last I checked, this my room. He snapped as he turned to stomp his way to the door, having enough of her complaining. I wonder. He heard her say with a sigh, ignoring his outburst completely. This did make him stop, however, with his hand inches away from the doorknob. Maybe you were just relieving some stress from our little shopping trip and strip. Her tone was teasing, but there was an definite edge to it, something he couldn't quite put a finger on. I hope you are thinking of me while you touch yourself. She continued, her voice husky. Naruto almost let out a shocked groan but bit it down. Why is he not opening the door? Lust, Kit. The fox sounded. Naruto almost jumped back in surprise, but quickly regained his composure. His block must have lowered while listening to the Lady Avenger. And just so you know, I think of you all the time. She sounded softly. He could barely hear that. He was sure he wasn't supposed to, but he did. If he were any farther away, he wouldn't have heard her. He was shocked. Could she use this kit? Bind her to your will. She just admitted something she was sure you couldn't hear. Her lust for you maybe is even greater than the Hyuga. Kurama sounded reinvigorated with the new knowledge. With the mention of Hinata, it was like a bucket of cold water splashed over him, and he snapped out of his shocked. Hinata. He thought, blinking twice. Ah, the fox roared. I will never understand you humans. You can have 2 mates, have 3, have 5, have 100 mates kit. Why settle for 1? He roared. Before Naruto could retort, he had Sasuke again. Still in there, she said loudly, obviously wanting him to hear this, unlike her last statement, which brought him to the reality of it all. Could she? Maybe that lady at the store was right, you could be playing for the other team. She said loudly, obviously wanted the other girls to hear that one. He heard Tayuya's faint laughter. Of course, no response from Karen. And even fainter laughing from deep inside his mind. And with that statement, it felt like a bucket of ice. There's no way she could. She only wanted one thing from him. Growling, Naruto unlocked the door and swung it open. Sasuke was standing right in front of the door. She stepped back and eyed him, looking very much interested in the sight before her. Going somewhere? She asked, curiosity obvious in her voice. Yep, was his quick reply as he brushed past her and made his way to the living room. He felt Sasuke's suspicious eyes on him as he continued on his way. He froze once he saw what was presented to him. Tayuya had the TV on. It is on some type of workout channel, but that's not what made him freeze. She was just wearing red panties and a loose tank top. All the while doing the same stretches as the people on the TV. His eyes then scanned the rest of the room and kitchen. Karen was nowhere to be seen. She must have already retired early. Instinctively, he looked back toward his room. He could see Sasuke had already gone in and closed the door, probably locked. His eyes then returned to the redhead. His eyes met hers, a devilish grin on her face. Watching me pimp daddy? She asked playfully as she stopped her stretching and turned full body to Naruto. She had saw him when he first exited the hall into the living room, saw him look around the room. As if checking if the cost was clear. I knew all that, Mr. Innocent's act was just that. An act. She thought as she felt her top slide down to one side, revealing one of. His eyes dropped immediately. Naruto was frozen solid. Why couldn't he move? Why was he feeling so hot right now? You know. She started, making her way slowly to him. He was stiffening in more ways than one as she came closer to him. She proceeded to let the other side of her shirt fall too. The shirt then fell to the floor. She grinned as she stepped out of it, still making her way to him. Her perky on full display, rosy nipples erect. I don't mind putting on a show. She said, stopping in front of him, only a foot separating them. She eyed him with hunger now, and she could swear she saw the same in his conflicted eyes. He gulped, unsure of what to do. A voice roared in his head. He couldn't do that. Could he? You smell good. She started, interrupting his thoughts while placing a hand on his chest, then begun to trace it down to a place she wanted badly the moment she saw him. All dressed up too. She continued coyly as her hand stopped at the large tent in his pants. She stepped closer to him, pressing her chest on him. He groaned as he felt her hard nipples poke into him. She grabbed his bulge as he grabbed her shoulders tightly. Good thing she didn't mind a little bruising, or that his grip might have been worrying from how tight it was. She begun to properly gauge his size by running a finger up and down the bulge, then grabbing it again. A victorious smile on her face. Take that bitch, girl. Tayuya was touching him. Should I call you Big Daddy from now on? She asked with a sultry tone while bringing her other hand to his zipper. She pulled it down agonizingly slow, wanting to push the teasing to the max. Naruto looked her in the eyes with hunger. He has been so pent up. Maybe this is what he needed, maybe. She, however, looked down away from his gaze with hunger as his was finally released from its prison. Oh Kami. She exclaimed at sight, while also having to back up a little bit as the very long and thick of Naruto pressed against her abdomen, pulsating and hot and leaking precum onto her. She instantly grabbed it, with both hands no less, one at the base and the other on the middle of the shaft. She could not even wrap her fingers around his monster of a. I hope you weren't planning on going on a date. She cooed with lustful intent. This thing is gonna ruin her and she is going to love every minute of it. But with the mention of date, whatever lustful spell Naruto was in, broke. He pushed Tayuya back, who in her surprise yelped and fell to the floor ungracefully. Naruto hurriedly shoved his still hard back into his pants. It pushed painfully against its cage as Naruto zipped his pants back up, carefully. I can't believe what I just let you do. He said, more angry at himself than at her. It was obvious what she wanted from him. It's up to him to stop things from going that far. Without waiting for a reply, he proceeded to walk toward the door. How can I possibly look Hinata in the eyes after this? He thought shamefully. The redhead frowned as she stood, hand on her hip. She watched him walk out the door and close it gently and wordlessly. She had won this round. A slow grin formed on her lips as she looked toward the hall. He might have just denied me from getting to explore more, but I am damn sure I just got further than bitch girl has. She thought with a smirk while bringing her hands to her face and taking a sniff. He smells like fresh soap. Her hands was still radiating from having him in her hands. He was thick and so long. He would definitely ruin her. That thought alone made her drip uncontrollably. She picked up her shirt as she made her way to her room. Now confident she has a fighting chance, and with the mental image of his huge engraved into her mind, she's set on releasing some tension of her own. With Naruto. I can't believe what just happened. He berated himself as he walked to the restaurant where his date awaited. Hinata. He thought with a guilty sigh, could he look her in the eye? Should he tell her what just happened? He knew he had to tell her about his current situation the Hokage created for him. I shouldn't tell about what happened with Tayuya. He reasoned in his head. But I also must. I cannot live. Oh, stop the dramatics, Kit. Kurama roared, which interrupted his thoughts. You will not tell her a thing that just happened with that girl. The fox continued. It had developed a new plan in its silence, obviously demanding the blonde sat this lust was not working. I will not lie to her. Naruto responded flatly and out loud instead of in his mind. He smiled sheepishly at the people who were already staring at him, but are now giving him confused looks. Kurama hummed thoughtfully. That's a first. Naruto heard that sound come the fox. You don't have to lie. Just do not tell her of very recent events, you fool. Ninetales reasoned, almost sounded normal. Naruto was very suspicious now. So just be dishonest then? Naruto asked, completely and utterly serious. He was not a liar, and he didn't want to be a cheater. His tenant growled. No, you idiot. Just don't tell her you let a girl you just met touch you before her. He roared, causing a slight headache. It's not lying or being dishonest if she doesn't ask. Or do you want to lose her? It spat the last part, with massive amount of venom laced on it. Naruto finally reached his designation. He stopped to look himself over, while also thinking about what the Ninetales said. Even if the fox had a slight point, and was very correct on him not wanting to lose his Heim, he still betrayed her by allowing himself to be touched. And not even that, he let himself be lured to shop with Sasuke and the others. He would be lying if he said he didn't secretly want that all to happen. He owes her his honesty. You owe her nothing. The fox viciously yelled. Ki. Obviously Kurama, you have never been in a committed relationship. Naruto interrupted the fox, who growled in annoyance. In such relationships, you have to trust each other along with the commitment of being with each other, he continued to explain while reaching for the doorknob. I am not an animal nor am I lair. He finished while blocking the fox from speaking. Hopefully his guard won't get lowered again, would it? He turned the knob and entered the restaurant. He entered and immediately scanned for his date. He found her, looking down, probably looking at the menu. He hopes he wasn't too late for the date. Ah, hero of the leaf, a feminine voice brought his eyes back to the front where he stood. He looked toward her. She was young girl, had to be about his age. I assume you are here with Milady Hyuga? She asked. That much was obvious, not like they were busy today. Place was practically empty right now save for that other couple. He gave her his signature smile with a nod. Man, what does a girl have to do to just have a guy like, she thought while also saying aloud. Follow me. She turned to lead him to his table. The girl eyed the Hyuga princess. Got to be a girl of her stature I suppose. She thought as the seated girl looked at them approaching, she begun to stand as they reached the table. It also helps the girl has huge tits, and look at those curves. Were her jealously thoughts as Hinata stood to welcome her boyfriend. Yo. Your waiter will be with you shortly. The young attendant said while turning to leave. Hinata smiled as the lady turned to leave. She was blocking the view of her boyfriend, and vice versa. She eyed him up with a curious look. She knew Naruto didn't possess any formal wear, but a simple black shirt and pants. Her smile widened. It was so Naruto, she loved it. Her eyes did stop on the slightly visible tent in his pants. But she quickly looked back up to meet his eyes. While she was eyeing him up, Naruto had done the same to her. Did she walk here in that? He thought. She has on a strapless tight purple dress, one that hugged just about every inch of her figure, and did nothing to hide her ample bust, and it stopped just above her knees. He felt himself grow a semi while also feelings of jealous erupted. She couldn't have walked here in that. He thought while his eyes left to go her seat. There he saw her large jacket she used to always wear. Seeing that, it calmed his jealousy down. His eyes went back to meet hers. Where did that even come from? Hi Naruto-kun. She spoke first, her voice light and sweet. His stare was intense, it then grew soft once she spoke. Hello my Haim. He responded, looking her over once again. Hope you weren't waiting long. He asked with an edge she couldn't quite put a finger on herself. She shook her head at his question. She wasn't waiting long, maybe 5 minutes. But that's fashionably late. She didn't mind. Good, now come to Papa. He sounded while holding his arms open wide for a hug. And she knew that tone of his, lustful, playful. She loved it, even though she couldn't bring herself to admit it aloud. Could she? Slowly, with a giggle at the Papa line, she walked into his arms. He engulfed her into a tight embrace. His scent of fresh soap invaded her nostrils and became intoxicating to her. You look absolutely beautiful, and made with that dress on. He complimented while rubbing her back. The compliment plus the sensation of him basically massaging her back made for a dangerous situation. She felt her nipples grow erect, and she is sure her boyfriend felt them as well. Naruto. She tried to warn as she felt his rubbing hands slide lower down her back, not making any effort to escape him. She didn't mind the touching. It's just where they were that sometimes caused her to hesitate. And so short. Shortest dress I think I ever seen you in. He continued huskily, eyes clouded with lust. His hands finally found her plump. He began to squeeze and rub it. This caused her dress to ride up a little. Hinata moaned, as he continued his massaging. Obviously this wasn't the first time he has been so forward in public, but this is the first time he is going this far. Why wasn't she stopping him? She gasped as she felt him grab her and lift her up off her feet. He then proceeded put his mouth on her neck and begun to lick her there. She hugged him tighter, feeling his member press into her nether region. What has got into him? She wondered as she can feel her own excitement. She then remembered they were in a restaurant. She looked around as Naruto continued his assault, biting her lips to stop from moaning. The place was empty except this one couple in the center. Her eyes stopped on their table. The man was occupied with eating his food but the lady. She was staring directly at them. When their eyes met, the lady looked away and pretended like she was eating. And as she was about to turn her attention back to Naruto to try to get him stopped before things got even more out of hand, she saw a man exit from the kitchen. Their waiter. Had to be, and she has to stop her boyfriend. Naruto. She whispered, her voice hoarse. She however didn't realize how far her skirt had risen up. She felt his hand on her inner thigh. She knew she has to stop him or they would get kicked out before even eating anything. "Oh, our waiter is coming, Naruto," she said, trying to sound serious, hoping that stopped him. It did. He instantly let her fall from his embrace. He smirked confidently as he looked her over. He didn't know what came over him, but damn, that felt good to do, was his thought as he watched her straighten her dress, all the while her neck was beginning to show signs of a hickey, and she was flush in the face, her nipples still very erect. "Hello, I am Shu, your waiter for the day," a man, probably a few years older than them, said, trying to be charming. "Please tell me my dear Misaki showed you your table?" he asked, obviously not really concerned, but still he looked worriedly to Naruto, then to Hinata, who he looked up and down. "Niece," he thought, looking at Hinata's. Uncomfortable with his obvious leering, Hinata replied. She did. We were exchanging pleasantries and in the middle of a interesting conversation. Naruto spoke, interrupting Hinata, who blushed, and also getting Shu's attention. He didn't like how he looked at his Hinata. Naruto chose to give the guy a piercing stare. While keeping eye contact with the waiter, Naruto gestured for Hinata sit down, which she did of course. He soon followed suit. Right. Sorry. May I take your order then?" he asked as Naruto finally let up on his gaze. "Me, he looked like he was about murder me. Gotta remember to not stare at hero of the Leafs girl, but could you blame the guy? She was smokin'. And he was sure her nipples were saying hello." Naruto stared at the menu in front of him, browsing it slowly. "Naruto," he heard Hinata say. He looked up to meet her eyes. "They have steak ramen," she said, a slight grin on her face. It was cute. "Saint steak ramen?" he asked. He has never heard of this. Technically, it's steak with ramen, but it's the same difference really. The waiter added. And it's a new addition to the menu, only on it for a week. He finished looking proud. Obviously, he probably had a hand in making the new dish. "Then we'd like to try it," Hinata said, looking at the man. "But his will be a large bowl and mine will be small," she continued, smiling at the man. "And please bring a large jug of water. I do not wish for my date to choke," she added playfully. She knew how Naruto ate. "As you wish, my lady," Shu said with a bow, trying to turn up the charm, and failing since the ever-looming threat of the blonde was right next to him. He then turned to leave the couple. Naruto grumbled under his breath. "I oughta pummel that asshole," he cursed, whilst looking at the man disappear in the kitchen. "Some waiter, all he did was check out my girlfriend and try to be suave. Tough luck, punk, she's mine," he ranted in his head. "Naruto." His girl called to him, getting his attention. She caught his angry stare before it turned soft as he faced her. "Please, let's just enjoy our evening together, please," she asked, pleading really. When she saw his brows furrow, she leaned in, getting closer to him. "Then maybe after we can continue where we left off a moment ago," she said, voice low. After she uttered that, she blushed. She couldn't believe she just said that, but she really wanted to go further. She has been thinking about it for a while. "Okay, fine, she's been thinking of it since they were kids, sue her." His eyes widened in shock and lust. Hinata," he said, completely stunned. She just lowered her gaze to not meet his. Was she? Wow, he thought, mind blown. "She wants it, Kit. You sat your lust with her. You could probably take her now if you wanted." His tenant once again roared. "With her, it could be so much easier than with the others." It continued. trying hard to push his hard-headed captor over the edge. Naruto groaned. A dose of reality hit him. The others. That's right, he was supposed to be facing the music. Yet here he was, Hinata offering him herself thinking she has an honest man. He had to let her know of his situation. Oh for sack, he blocked the overgrown from speaking once again as he stared at Hinata intensely, trying to think of what to say. His silence made her look back up at him, but only to immediately look back down at the table. The heiress squirmed under his gaze, which felt like it was piercing through her. Why is he staring at me so? Her thoughts trailed off as she blushed. She wanted to say conflicted, but there is definite desire in them. Her legs clasped together, he really knew how to get to her down there. She really wanted him. She looked back up, but not to look at him, but to look at the door as she heard it open. A woman walked in. Raven hair up in a high ponytail, with sunglasses on. She wore a loose black shoulder-less shirt with tan shorts that stopped straight her mid-thigh. Even through the sunglasses, Hinata felt the lady's eyes on her. The woman smirked at her. And Hinata had to admit, the lady definitely is a sight to see. But why does she look so familiar? Staring at the women still. Hinata couldn't quite put a finger on it, but she could swear she knows her. She watches as the woman was guided to her table by the waitress girl. Masaka was it. The lady sat only 2 tables away from them, with her back turned. Odd, Hinata thought, surely burning a hole in the back of the woman's head with her gaze. She looks like Hinata. Naruto's serious voice broke her gaze away from the woman. She looked at him. Still has a serious expression. She frowned herself. Had she done something wrong? There's something I must tell you. He continued, looking her in the eyes. He took a deep breath. Now or never, Uzumaki. He told himself, trying to gain confidence for what he was about to say. His girlfriend was mentally panicking in her head. Is he breaking up with me? She thought. No, that couldn't be it. Could it? Maybe. Her thoughts continued while she also tried thinking of things she maybe did wrong in the past in their relationship. A day ago. He started softly, stopping her panicking for the moment at least. I was given a mission by the Hokage. He continued trying to find the right words. She looked at him confused even though this news relieved her mind of the thought of a breakup. Here are your orders, milady Hyuga. Their waiter, Shu, said, flashing her a winning smile as he put her steaming bowl down in front of her. And milord Uzumaki. He didn't turn to Naruto as he said this while putting his large bowl down in front of him, he was still looking at Hinata. Or down her cleavage line, which he had an amazing view of. Good lord, what I wool. Naruto cleared his throat. Shu immediately looked at him and went white. Sorry, your jug of water is right on the way. He spurted quickly out before Naruto said anything, his death stare doing wonders. The waiter then retreated, ran to the kitchen. What an asshole. Naruto grumbled. Seriously, he knew his girl was beautiful, and very right now in that tight body-hugging dress, but was it hard to ask for their waiter to not ogle her so openly, or be an asshole? He didn't mind a look, but the guy was straight eye-raping her. Growling, Naruto turned to look at the kitchen door. Maybe I should head back there and have a talk with that bastard. He thought as he was about to turn back to his girlfriend, thinking better of it. He froze as he saw a woman just a few tables away. Her raven hair sticking up in a signature high ponytail he knew far too well. His eyes went down to her exposed shoulders. There, he saw a scar made from a bite he put there. What is she doing here? He thought, panicking just slightly. Naruto. Hinata's soft voice brought his attention to her. She was used to being leered at this point in her life. It still made her heavily uncomfortable, but she could handle it now with confidence she has gained from being with Naruto. She could, however, feel Naruto's malice. Almost, she knew he probably wanted to hurt that guy. When he finally looked at her. Please, don't, was her simple beg. She saw no reason for Naruto to get in trouble for harmless looking, even though it is certainly unwanted. He frowned at her, then he looked down at the ramen. It was steaming like it was when first put it down, but he could still feel the heat. It smelled alright. You gonna let yours get cold? He heard his Heim tease as she had already begun eating her meal, obviously very slow compared to him. He picked up his fork, then looked at her. Remembering the conversation they were having before he was interrupted by the Naruto gulped as he started swirling around the ramen with his fork. Shit, that made me forget. He froze again as he remembered Sasuke was literally only a few tables away. I'm such a hypocrite. He mentally groaned as he dropped his fork to massage his temple. Hinata just stared at him while she ate quietly. He was in mental anguish over something, she could tell. It had to be about the mission he was given by the Hokage. She highly doubted it was about the waiter. Naruto. She tried again. He looked at her as he continued to rub his head. Tell me what's on your mind. She said softly, giving him a reassuring smile. Damn, she's so damn and caring. He thought as he took a deep breath. Hinata. He started, looking her deep in her lavender eyes. Like a band-aid. He thought while narrowing his eyes. Sasuke is back, he said dryly. She froze instantly in shock as her eyes flew to the woman. There, I said it. He thought triumphantly. That wasn't too hard, but of course he had a lot more he had to lay out as well. In my mission, he continued, getting her attention back to him, not noticing her traveling eyes. Well, here's your order, milady. They both heard their waiter say loudly. Hinata looked over to where he was putting a bowl in front of the raven-hair girl. She, however, is still in shock. The Uchiha is back. Her eyes went from the waiter to the girl. Is that her? She thought with a heavy frown. Her eyes then went to Naruto. Does his mission involve her somehow? Was he her watcher? Naruto would be the only logical option. A Kage would have to watch over someone as powerful as Sasuke because he was just as powerful. But of course, that's obvious. What's got her slightly worried is the fact it's Sasuke and her Naruto. She knows of their history together. She would fight for her right to love Naruto if she had to, and it looks like she has too. Her blonde boyfriend, meanwhile, was fighting the urge to look back and glare at and then at Sasuke, and demand what she doing her, and how she knew they were here. But he was damn sure she followed him, he wouldn't put it past her. Here's your cups and jug. Shu said, breaking them both out of their thoughts. He emphasized the jug word while wiggling his eyebrows at Hinata, but both of them looked so serious that they hardly noticed him and his unprofessional behavior. He sat them down. Obviously, he must have interrupted a serious conversation. A breakup maybe. Ooh, got to let Misaka know this. He thought, almost giggling, but controlled himself and left. Naruto stopped himself from turning and glaring at the man. Instead, he focused on Hinata. She doesn't look mad, just determined. He thought while studying her face. She wasn't mad now, but he's sure she is going to be in a second. My mission involves her. He started, going back to now swirling his now lukewarm meal. I figured that, she said in a snarky tone. Naruto was stunned. Maybe she was more mad than she let on. I'm not mad, she added, as if reading his mind. She sure sounded like it to him. Not at you at least. She continued while pushing her bowl to the sides, no longer having the appetite to eat. I'm so. There's nothing for you to apologize about. She cut him off quickly. Seriously, she was not mad at him, at least. I'm mad at the Hokage, at the situation, at Sasuke, but not at you, Naruto. She said, giving him a loving smile. She did, however, spit out Sasuke's name. She didn't hate the woman, but the girl had her man in her slut twice and dropped him on his head in brutal fashion, twice. That fact alone made her want to loathe the woman with all her being, but hate just wasn't in her blood. Though, she can say she extremely dislikes her. But you don't. I understand. She interrupted him again while wiggling her right foot out of her shoe. I understand perfectly what I have to do now. She continued, looking very determined now. She is sure the Uchiha would hold nothing back in taking Naruto from her, if Sasuke is actually back. Remember the darkest moment, Hinata chanted in her head, gaining confidence on what she was about to do. She closed her eyes. She remembers the time when the Uchiha had entered the war to help the allied side. The girl had then pulled Naruto into a open-mouthed in front of the whole alliance. Her man had returned eagerly as far as she could see. She was ashamed at how she wanted that to be with her, at how hot it looked. She was mostly ashamed it turned her on. Hinata reopened her eyes. Her look of determination was still there, but now with a cloud of lust and envy. Hinata. Naruto begun again, staring into her reopened eyes. He gulped. She was staring at him with a hunger he never seen in her before. Yes kid, she wants you very ba. Both the fox and Naruto were threw off from mentally speaking when Naruto felt a foot on his flaccid. He looked down to see a perfectly manicured foot pressing into his groin. Hinata. He questioned, his voice husky. She ignored him as she started feeling him up with her foot, pressing her big toe onto his shaft. She felt it harden. He moaned softly. She looked around the room to make sure the coast was clear. The couple had left already, their waiter must still be in the back. Her eyes stopped on the woman she knew had to be the Uchiha. She looked back to her boyfriend. You know, she said, getting his attention back up to her. I can be just as wild as Sasuke. She whispered so only he could hear her, while blushing slightly, her words sounding foreign off her tongue. Her foot still massaging his, which she found was very, very, very long, as she ran her toes up and down the long member. At hearing that, Naruto reached down and grabbed her foot. He blew out a breath before looking at her. Hinata. He said sternly while leaning forward. She looked at him confused. I don't want you to be anyone but yourself. He said as he begun massaging her foot. She moaned. And you definitely don't have to compete with Sasuke. I love you the way that you are. He continued. He just said the L word, now looking very confident. I love you. He finally said. Looking at her reaction. And he finally said it. He doesn't need her to be some crazy freak for him, though he would welcome it, but he also wanted her to be his lovely and caring Hinata. She only smiled. Her eyes clouded with something he couldn't quite put a finger on. He felt her pull her foot from him. He then watched as she stood up. Her dress, due to her standing abruptly, had tugged down a few inches and revealed a long line of cleavage. She then grabbed her jacket. This action shocked him. Hinata. He asked, was she leaving? Maybe she was actually enraged at him, but he hadn't even told her about the other girls, or the fact Sasuke would be staying with him. But it also didn't make sense. She had just gave him a footsie, but with his. And he just admitted to loving her, and she was gonna leave. He looked at her with narrowed eyes as she walked to his side, and much to his surprise, instead of walking by him, she sat down beside him while setting her jacket behind her. Hinata. He asked again, completely and utterly confused. She looked him in the eyes, still smiling. All the while, in her head, she chanted. He loves me, he loves me. Repeatedly. She leaned toward him. I love you. She whispered back to him before pressing her lips to his. She honestly doesn't know what's come over her. It's usually Naruto that's the forward one and she is the reserved one. Naruto groaned. He wrapped an arm around her to deepen his tongue prodding at her soft lips to open. She obliged. His tongue immediately invaded her mouth and battled hers. She lost it, of course. She moaned into his mouth as he deepened it. Their kissing is always hot and electric. Hinata couldn't help how it did things to her. And his tongue, she loved the feeling of it exploring her mouth. It was weird at first when they first started making out in their relationship, cause she had never done that before, but now, she loved every bit of it. Without realizing, her hand had fell onto his crotch. Feeling the mass on her hand, She squeezed it, which caused him to groan. She froze along with Naruto. She's never touched him there before. Sure, she just touched it with her foot, but that was totally different because she was doing it out of extreme jealousy and lust. But this time she is doing it out of love. She glided her hand up and down his member, and yes, just like she noticed with her foot, he is long, and now she realizes he is also very thick. The thoughts of what it could to her make her quiver in anticipation. Here, he asked softly, breaking their face sucking as she continued filling up his. He was honestly surprised at what she was doing. She's never been this carefree. But he can't say he doesn't like it. He looked down to her. A mischievous grin appeared. He hooked a finger in between her line and pulled his finger down, which in turn made the dress go down, revealing her ample tits to him. Finally, he said huskily as he eyed her pink nipples. Her face went beet red, her shyness back. They were going pretty far. This is the first time her has been exposed to him. She knew he loved how large they were even if she didn't sometimes. Ever since their relationship spiced up, she started to not wear bras as the fabric hurt and itched a lot whenever her nipples were hard due to Naruto. Hinata bit her lip as she went to cover them with her arms. Naruto grinned as she went back to being meek Hinata. Hinata, they are perfect, and even better than I imagined. He complimented truthfully, getting her full attention back to him. He knew how she adored his praises. He found that out just on their second date. But I realize this isn't fair, so I will even things up a bit. He said, sounding a bit commanding as he leaned back. She looked at him confused, now, wondering what he meant. Without word, his hands went down, her eyes followed. She gasped as he undid his pants zipper, then unbuttoned them. She could see a hint of hair down there, meaning he going without underwear. She then froze completely as he reached a hand into his pants. She took in a deep breath as he pulled his out. And she couldn't take her eyes off of it. It's very thick, and as she noted before, very long, maybe even longer if he was standing up. Kami, Naruto has a monster. She thought as she eyed it. She had seen before. One of the misfortunes of being teamed with boys, sometimes you see things you don't want to. And those boys didn't compare to Naruto. He liked the way she looked at his. Maybe this is what it took for them to take that step in their relationship, for him to push her. Yes, Kit, you are finally getting it. They are yours to take as you will. Kurama said to himself, not wanting to steer Naruto from his current state of mind. Naruto pulled her closer to him. Looks like you like what you see. He whispered into her ear, his hot breath sending shivers down her spine. She moaned. Why don't you get to know him better? He demanded, giving her head a slight push downward. Hinata's head fell until she was face first with his member. It was already so red and looked as though it was ready to pop. Maybe he wants me to put him over the edge. She thought as she looked at his more closely. She could feel the heat of it. It twitched, a trail of pre-cum ran down the long shaft. Deciding to waste no more time, she leaned forward and kissed it, as she brought her left hand to grab it at the base. She kissed up almost to his head then stopped. She used her left hand to pull back his foreskin, then kissed the exposed head. Naruto almost exploded then and there. You've done this before? He asked confused. He really wanted to just enjoy the pleasure she was giving him right now. But first the foot job, and now she's worshipping his like a girl in one of the pervy sage's books. She stopped, and looked up at him confused. No, she said curtly, while pulling body down under the table, still looking up at him while her left hand started jerking him off, her little fingers not even close to wrapping around the log in her hand. But I have practiced, she added teasingly, much to her boyfriend's dismay. He couldn't believe it, and with who? On carrots, bananas, and other vegetables. She finished as she looked at his again. Though he was bigger than all of those food items, the cucumber she had was the closet thing, but she figured it was way too big and simply threw it out. Looks like she should have stuck with it. Naruto sighed in relief. Though he couldn't help but feel a tad bit critical of himself. Could he really complain if she had a past relationship with a guy? Yes, yes, him and his tenant said in unison. He groaned. He didn't want to sound like an animal, but she was his. And bees. His thoughts were brought to an abrupt halt when he felt a warm, wet mouth wrap around the head of his. His head flew back in pleasure. He moaned. She pressed her hot tongue against his head. Quote exclamation mark quote. He moaned, trying to keep it down. Hinata loved hearing his pleasured moans, however, she felt she couldn't go past his head, as simply the head of his massive is making her mouth open wider than it ever has, maybe in the future with more practice. She liked the sound of that. His radiating pulsed inside of her, it going slightly deeper into her mouth. She closed her eyes as tears came to them. She used both her hands to work his shaft as best she could. Almost. Naruto moaned looking down, her warm tender hands were stroking him at a gradual pace. He can see the saliva from her mouth start to coat his member, her hands spreading it. Which caused her stroking to start making constant squishing noises. But he couldn't bring himself to care though, he had just opened the door to Hinata heaven. Hinata. He warned before grabbing her head with both hands to stop her from moving, she did. Her eyes now open, she was wondering why he stopped her. That's when she felt his get bigger, her eyes widened as it started to spurt. Shooting hot cum into her throat and filling her mouth up instantly. Fuck. Naruto almost yelled but kept it down, just slightly, while climaxing into his girlfriend's mouth. She tried to swallow some of it, but it was too much, however, his death grip was too strong so she couldn't pull back. At least he didn't taste too bad, salt with a heavy mix of ramen. Finally, she could feel him stop spurting and felt it go flaccid, she felt him let go of his grip on her. She instantly started coughing, his excess cum falling down from her mouth to her exposed chest, some even got her dress. While most just slid down to her chin then to her neck. Sorry. He said sheepishly while looking at her regain control of her coughing. He smirked, she looked damn good with his cum on her. That was amazing. He said as she got from under the table to sit by him again, she then fixed her dress. He could now tell his cum was everywhere on her. Sorry for making you, swallow. He said, trying not sound like an. Was there any way not to? It's okay, I enjoyed the taste. She said. Her blush returned in full force, and she'd rather this, than to have been drenched completely in cum. I have to go. Freshen up. She added while standing. He nodded, they couldn't very well walk her home with his cum dripping down her chin, could they? She walked toward the bathroom. Once she was out of sight, Naruto sighed. That's not how I saw our first act going. He thought completely relaxed, his still out. Though I can't complain, that was amazing, I can't even put it into words. His thoughts continued as a shit-eating grin appeared on his face. Very subtle. He heard a voice say teasingly. Shit, he had forgot about the cause of all his current problems, who had probably followed him here to spy on them, cause if she wanted to interrupt, she would have. He chose to ignore her, he'd wait for his girlfriend to return and then leave. They had just sprinted past a milestone in their relationship, she wasn't gonna ruin that, he wouldn't let her. I'll admit, I am impressed with the Hyuga girl. This caught Naruto off guard, Sasuke. Impressed. With Hinata. What world is this? Didn't think she had it in her to do that in public. Sorta. She continued, giggling at the last bit. This place was empty, and their waiters were nowhere to be found, probably in the back. So hardly public. She and her Naruto have done much more than this in public places, so this is child's play for him, she knew it. Growling, Naruto finally turned to her. He was shocked to see she had turned her chair to completely face him and Hinata's table. She slowly took off her sunglasses to make eye contact with him. They both stared intensely at each other. And I suppose you are expert at public decency. He goaded purposely. She only smirked in return. That's when he noticed her moving arm. His eyes following it down, it stopped as rest of it disappeared into her shorts. His eyes then looked over her long milky legs, his sprung up to attention, painfully erect as he had just come hard in Hinata's mouth. I suppose not, she said, bringing his attention back to her face. She had a knowing look. But you know very well I am an expert at public indecency. She growled seductively as she finally removed her hand from her shorts. She showed Naruto her 2 digits that had her creamy juices on them. He gulped as he watched her bring the fingers to her mouth and suck them in. He watched, as if in a trance, while she cleaned her fingers, her tongue lapping around expertly. He couldn't help but groan. She's still so damn, he couldn't help it. Once she was done, she stood, looking at him with an evil grin. Just know this, Uzumaki, she said, walking to him. He froze. She stopped once she stood at the side of their table. His erect in full view of her hungry gaze. You, she said, giving him an pointed stare. And him. She continued, now staring at his. Still belong to me, she said, looking him in the eyes. He glared at her. The little girl can have her fun for now, she bellowed. But just you know this, she added quickly once he looked like he was about to say something. This means war. She finished, then turned and walked right of the restaurant, without paying. Naruto blinked as he watched her abruptly leave. War, he thought while looking completely lost. That bitch is still crazy, he thought while turning his attention toward the bathroom door. Indeed, Kurama sounded, agreeing with Naruto for once. As he waited for Hinata, he couldn't believe he once again got tempted by Sasuke. He had been so good at denying her up to this point. You need. The fox sounded again. And how would that help me? He asked in return. He sighed. He couldn't keep getting frozen in place like he did with Tayuya. And now with Sasuke. What if Hinata had walked out of the bathroom during their exchange, with his raging very much alive? Before the fox could saying anything, Naruto blocked it from speaking, much to its annoyance. Wait, he thought, looking at where Hinata was sitting then to where Sasuke had been sitting. Hinata had to have seen her come in. Her complete personality changed, going from reserved to forward. As the bathroom door finally squeaked opened, Naruto grinned. The off looks he noticed slightly were to Sasuke. Her want to be as wild as Sasuke, she knew Sasuke was behind me. Hinata, my naughty little Heim, he thought as he looked at her with a warm smile as she exited the bathroom and made her way over to their table. She retrieved her coat and put it on. Ready? She asked, her face flush a bit. She still couldn't believe she just gave her sucked his, in a public place. She knew those types of things were coming in their relationship, but she didn't think it would be like this. He nodded as he stood, her eyes dropped. Naruto, she said, getting his attention. He looked at her with an arched eyebrow. It's hard again, she said, looking down at his still. Now that he was standing, she could definitely now say for sure, he was extremely long. Her insides churned at the thought of him inside of her. Could she even take him? Her mouth barely fit around the head. Surely her vagina couldn't handle it if her mouth barely could it? She would try even still. Oh, right, he said as he hurriedly stuffed his into his pants, which was just in the nick of time as the door to the kitchen opened. Misaka stepped out. Hinata stepped in front of her man to shield his as the women approached them. His pants did nothing to hide him, especially now that he was erect. Misaka's hair was slightly ruffled. Her face has a hint of a blush on it. She looked at the couple who was about to leave, then at the table just behind her. You guys don't know what happened to the woman that was seated here, do you? She asked while cursing the men in the back for keeping her so long. It's okay, I'll pay for her, Naruto said as he handed her a stack of Ryu. Misaka's eyes bulged as she looked at what she was being handed. Thank you, Naruto-san, she said with a bow. He just handed her a shitload of cash, was her thought as the couple passed by her to leave. She looked at their table. They barely even ate their food. Yet, she looked at the cash in her hand. He handed her this much. She smiled at their backs as they left. Hero of Leaf, what I wouldn't give for just one night. She sighed at the thought.